By the time we get to Revelation, it gets really confusing, especially when it comes to the seal, bowl, and trumpet judgments. We want to know a timeline. I mean, I do anyway. I want to know exactly when these things will take place or how they're going to unfold. When are the bowl judgments going to happen? When are the trumpet judgments going to happen? Do they happen like one right after the other, or are they kind of consecutive? Like we don't know the answer. Can we really know the answer? I don't know. Let's ask Joel Richardson today from our End Times Timeline Conference. The Olivet Discourse, what Jesus says, and this shocked me when I taught Revelation. This was one of the things I'd never seen it before, but literally what Jesus says in Matthew lines up with the seals or when Jesus, breaks each seal in Revelation, and they're literally just like so much of the same things, and I was surprised at that. I don't know why. So what Jesus says and what Revelation says kind of ties in together. So
yeah, very much. So the book of Revelation pivots off of what the foundation that Jesus laid. Jesus was pivoting off of what the prophets have already said, and the book of Revelation is building upon. This is important. This is why my view of the end times comes from this perspective. The foundation is the prophets. And then what Jesus says adds to and gives clarity to what they said. And the book of Revelation comes last. Oftentimes Christians will start trying to understand the end times. When I first got saved, I was a little drug addict too, mostly, like a pothead, but, the first book I opened to was the book of Revelation. That's a bad way to do it. Don't start with the book of Revelation. Start with the foundation, especially if you're a pothead. Woman and the dragon, and, So there's kind of a way to interpret the Bible, and we need to understand the way that it's written. You start with the foundation. You don't start with the roof, right? Like, that's not how you build a house. You don't build the roof first and then try to build the walls and then do the foundation. You start with the foundation. The foundation is Moses. The foundation is Torah. Then the prophets are pointing back to that. And then Jesus and the apostles are building on that. And the book of Revelation comes last. So that's important. So let's look at the way the book of Revelation aligns. I've got a few charts here. So in Matthew 24, Jesus speaks of deception and false Christs. In the book of Revelation, you have the first seal. That's the rider, the white horse.
Okay, but stop there for a second, because this is when Jesus, if you were with us in Revelation, like Jesus is the only one that can open the scroll.
Yeah.
And so the scroll has 7 seals on it, and so Jesus opens one at a time, and every time he opens one, that's what we're talking about here in Revelation.
So picture an old classic scroll that has these wax seals on it. The first one is broken. It's the rider on the white horse. And it's often believed this is the Antichrist. He goes forth conquering and to conquer. Jesus begins by saying it begins with deception, false Christs, false messiahs. Then you have Matthew 24, 6a, there'll be wars and rumors of wars. In Revelation, the second seal, the red horse, is the removal of peace. Great sword, war. So you can see the pattern of Revelation aligns with the way Jesus lays it out really, really quite well. Then Jesus says, then there'll be famine. So after the war, then you have famine. Revelation has the third seal, that's the black horse. Economic collapse, famine. In just the same order, so again, these things align. Those were the beginning of birth pains.
So this is the first 3.5 years.
Yep.
Okay.
So you've got the first 3 riders. Then comes persecution, tribulation. This is in Revelation 6, verse 7 and 8, the 4th seal or the 4th rider. This is the ashen or the pale or the chloros. So it's kind of like the color of a dead body, kind of green, pale horse. And then it's death. So, actually, there's another. We could keep going. As you continue with the seals, I didn't include the chart. It really does, Revelation aligns with Jesus' sort of time frame. So it's important to see that they're not disconnected. They're very much elaborating and supporting one another.
Okay, 23. So how does that help us understand the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls in Revelation? So you've got this, the seals are broken, and then it moves into the trumpet judgments and the bowl judgments, and that's where I get lost, because there's so much between the trumpets and the bowl judgments, because it's like, well, are we here? Are we not here? Is it all of the world? Is it just Israel? There's just so many questions that I think that I wanted to try to get answers to.
So now I've kind of given a little bit more of a detailed chart to understand the different perspectives. And just for clarity, it's also where I get lost. This is why it's important to have the interpretive framework that I just laid out. Let the main things be the main things. Let Moses, let the prophets, let the words of Jesus be the main thing. Revelation is a hard book. I mean, I've been teaching it, I've been working through it hard for years, and I've been teaching it like verse by verse for the past couple of years. It's a hard book, and there's tons of debate. And you can get 10 teachers in a room and go, give me your chart of how you think the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls will unfold, and everyone's going to have a slightly different chart. I mean, even from the same, you get 5 pre-tribbers, they're going to have slightly different charts. You get 3 pre-wrathers, they're going to be slightly different charts. It's complicated. So one of the questions is, do they all unfold consecutively? So first the seals, then after the 7th seal, then come the trumpets, then the bowls. That's one big discussion you can have. Or do they unfold concurrently, so they're kind of overlapping one another? Or is there kind of a mixture between the two? Some of them are consecutive, and then some of them are inside and within, like they're parenthetical. And the book of Revelation has many parenthetical sections, like parentheses, like I'm explaining something, then I stop and I make this other point, and then I come back to what I was saying, and you're going, how do I lay out the timeline of what Joel just explained? And the book of Revelation is tricky. Okay, so let me just say that. And I'm not dogmatic. I'd far rather, as a teacher, say, guys, I'll be honest, I really don't know. One thing I'm confident of is that when all this unfolds, I'll put my right arm on the chopping block that says, I'm going to get some stuff wrong. I'm very confident of that. We all will. The Lord alone will be, no one at the end of the day is going to be like, I told you, I had it all figured out, I told you. Like, that's not going to be a discussion at the day of the Lord. Okay, so here's the pre-tribulational rapture view. You've got the seals, those are the little blue, I've got those. Then you've got the trumpets, then the bowls. So that's basically the pre-trib perspective. The pre-wrath has the rapture happening at the 6th seal. Now again, the pre-wrath doesn't really know, it's just vague. Sometime within that last 3.5 years, the Lord comes back and the rapture takes place, and it makes a distinction between the seals, and which is the tribulation or the persecution of Satan, and the trumpets and the bowls, which pre-wrath would say, this is the wrath of God that's poured out on the earth against unbelievers. But we get raptured before these things. The pre-wrath view has some really good, solid arguments. And I consider myself pre-wrath, but I also consider myself post-trib. I kind of think there's a way, and I'm just not quite sure how to make it all work together. But I think they both have strengths, but I think they both also have some difficult verses that are hard. Because when you read Revelation, it does seem to put the seals, it does seem to make them consecutive, like they unfold seals, trumpets, bowls. But when you look at the 6th seal, it really looks like the rapture. But when you look at the 7th trumpet, it also looks like the rapture. And there's just difficulties. It does.
Like, did something come between the 6th and 7th that maybe we didn't see?
Yeah. And in fact, I could even be wrong here. Maybe even the pre-wrath would have the 7th before the trumpets, or the trumpets would be part of the 7th seal. Again, everybody's got it a little different. So here's sort of, I'm going to say that here's the post-tribulational perspective. This is kind of mine, which is sort of the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th seal. You could almost say they all are a summary of the whole 3.5 years. I kind of see the trumpets. I think that we're raptured at the last trumpet. That's what the scriptures say. The pre-wrath would say, well, these trumpets in Revelation are different than the last trumpet that Jesus and Paul talk about. Those are different trumpets. I go, that's hard. That's hard to say that after the last trumpet are 7 trumpets. And we should just know that they're very different. I go, that one's hard, but again, this is just one of the difficulties. So you can see the different, there's many different ways you can graph it out. This is probably the most difficult part of understanding the end times, is knowing precisely. But to be honest, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, again, all we have to do is be prepared to face tribulation and the Antichrist. We don't need to know, when I open the newspaper, is this the 3rd trumpet? Or, like it's all a mess. It's a big nightmare. Let's just be faithful. It's going to be hard. We don't need to have it all figured out. But theology geeks, we like to do it anyway. So that's,
there you go.
And that's okay.
All right. Hope that was helpful to you today. And I'm going to put a link to our entire conference, End Times Timeline Conference, 6 hours long if you want to sit and watch it. But we're breaking these questions up, putting it in its own series, because we want you to take each question and kind of digest it, listen to it a couple times so that you can really understand what we're saying here. So anyway, if you want to get a hold of Joel, joelstrumpet.com, and we'll see you next week.